Hey guys, welcome to another Pilates session, intermediate level. We're on our back straight away. Bring it down, get comfortable on the mat, feet tucked in, knees bent, and let's peel the spine off. Lift the hips nice and high and imprint back down. Mobilize that spine and get as much pelvic tilt at the bottom that you can. Bring in that breathing. Once more. And as the hips rest down, get them in a comfortable position, neutral if you want. Lift the two arms straight up to the ceiling, and what you're going to try and do is you're going to try and lift one hand up to the sky, so the other shoulder, one shoulder stays down, while the other one lifts up. Now the head is going to be a little bit awkward if the head doesn't move, so let's lift the head with it. Let's change sides each time. So you're trying to lift one shoulder off the mat, while the other one stays down. So lift and lower. Now as I said, we lift the head as well. And we're going straight up. Keep everything nice and comfortable as you move. Shoulders and neck comfortable. Brace that center. And let's start bringing a little bit across the body now. So keep that shoulder in position, keep one shoulder in position. As you come up, bring it a little bit across the body. Just gently towards the other hand. And again, the aim is to keep one still while the other moves. Once more each side. Last one. And gently rest those shoulders down. Lift and lower the hips. And let's go straight up and down, get a little bit more movement into those legs and hips. And get that back working a little bit more. Again, center is braced. Abdominal wall, hips wrapping around us. That muscle that wraps around is engaged. Belly button drawn gently in, so keeping that center nice and strong, connecting to that core. Pelvic floor muscles gently contracted. And gently resting down. Pull the hips. Curl the shoulders, get those abdominals working a little bit more. They would have had a little bit of work in the previous exercise when we were lifting our shoulders up one at a time. Now let's get them working a little bit more. Keep those hips moving. Never resting, quick pull. Concentrate on full movement and not stopping in the stretch. Once more to each. And gently rest. Hug the knees. Quick rotation in the back, one each side. Rotate the spine. Loosen it out. Start waking it up a little bit. And gently back to the center, back to our shoulder bridge again. One foot to the knee. Lift the hips, keep the hips up, and switching legs. So get a little bit of rotation into the hips, starting off changing sides each time, but now let's stay on the same leg. So bring the stretch, straighten it, back to the knee. So each time your foot touches the knee tries to go to the floor. Remember, the hips don't move. When the knee tries to go to the floor, the hip does not on that side. So don't let the hip drop down. Keep the hips in position. Stretch that leg away, lengthen. Once more. And replace that leg back down and change. Again, try to keep those hips as steady as you can as you get that rotation into that hip and as you straighten it away as well. And once more. And drop the hips just straight down and moving side to side. Pull the knee across the body to add that little bit more. Push the foot on the knee to the floor so you get the knees as low as you can to each side. Great way to move that spine. Get those little stretches. Last one. And as you come back to the center, switch the foot on the knee and keep moving. Slow it down a little bit if you need to, as always. Work into that gentle stretch. And last one, to each side. And bring it back to the center. Let's get the abdominals working. So we're going to bring it to a similar position with the foot on the knee. And from there, we're going to lift the shoulders off. Curl the shoulders. In that position, we're bringing the knee towards the head. The knee that's on the ground towards the head. And bring it back down. Let's switch. Now we're going to aim to try not to rest everything, the foot back down onto the ground each time. So you're going to try and bring the switch without resting that foot down. So you're using one thigh to bring that foot into a stretch, to bring that hip into a stretch, which may not happen if the strength isn't there in that quad muscle, in those hip flexors to get there. Support that head if you need to. And we're getting lots of rotations into the hip. Once more on each side. And keep yourself as steady as you can, not rocking side to side as you go. Last repetition. And gently rest it down. Slide the feet away, go to full stretch. And let's bring the arms back. Let's roll up. The aim is to roll up fully all the way up. And rolling back down. As always, we can always just stay rolling just a little bit off with the upper back, so you stay with just that abdominal curl as opposed to fully sitting up. Remember that full sit-ups add a lot more pressure onto everything. If there's any issues there in that lower abdominal area, then full sit-ups may not suit. So, and maybe you can't come up, maybe you're not able. Nice and controlled back down. Next time we lift, let's stay up. Let's bring our feet to the edge of the mat, to the corners of your mat. Adjust your position if you need to. Now, we're going into our saw, which can be quite a tricky exercise. So, the aim is to get to the toes with a sawing action, double saw. Arms out to the side, sit nice and tall every time. That's going to be tough on the hips to keep you up. Rotate first, saw, saw, baby finger to baby toe. Rotate, saw, saw. Double breath. And as always, you can Bend the knees a little bit to allow everything in this area to take the pressure off, and flexibility is a little bit tricky. But still keep your legs in position. Be aware that the legs aren't moving. So now it's much easier to get to that baby toe, but we want to try and straighten the legs a little bit if you can, so you feel that flexibility down along the backs of the legs. Once more to each. And back to center. From there, bring the feet back, adjust your position maybe a little bit more forward so you can come back down onto the mat. But let's not go the whole way back down. Lower back comfortable, and slowly bring it down. Bring it down to that position where you feel like you're just about to collapse, but don't let yourself fall back. And come back up. So again, the lower back needs to be comfortable. Those abdominals have to work to stop you from falling back. And go back and hold. Again, less movement is better, or not better, more movement is better, but less movement if the back is under any strain, then less movement is better for that back. So stay a little bit higher if you need to, if you feel that lower spine under any pressure. And if it's still under too much pressure and sitting up, you bring your lower back onto the mat, which is this position. Holding, stay holding. Abdominal walls brace, keep that breathing. And gently bring that back onto the mat. And from there, let's get a little, bend the knees and get a little pelvic tilt, just to get that lower back moving, which I always like to do after that type of an exercise. Get that pelvic tilt, full movement. Loosen out the back. And from there, lift the legs to tabletop position. Curl the shoulders off, and it's almost like a breaststroke leg kick if you're used to that. Feet out and kick out around. End up in that straight leg position. And again, you have the option of not going as wide. And keep all around the hips. Comfortable, lower the leg if you want, but that adds a lot more pressure to everything, so make sure that lower back is comfortable, not moving. Reverse it, opposite way. Support the head again if you need to. Neck muscles will tire out. 2 more. Gently rest it down. From there, we stay with tabletop. Push the hands against the knees. So you're trying to bring your knees out, but the hands stop. So just hold our position. Keep that position. Let's lift the shoulders off and push. So the shoulders, arms have to work to stop your knees from going anywhere. Just maintain that static contraction in the hips. Well, let's switch now. Catch the knees and now try and bring them together. The knees are trying to pull together. Keep them tabletop, knees above the hips. We could do this with the knees together. Let's just use the arms for a change. Keep that breathing, keep that curl off. Keep pushing those knees towards each other. And gently rest it down. Rest the feet down, hip width apart. We'll bring your knees together, squeeze the knees together. So from there, we're going to curl the shoulders off and get the abdominals working. Now I want you to maintain the squeeze on the inner thighs, knees pushing together. Lift. Now no rest back down. Concentrate on the squeeze in between the knees, pushing together all the time. Now let's add in the hands above the chest, pushing, still lifting. Now we add a little bit more to those abdominals. Those upper abdominals have to work a little bit more because our arms are working, our shoulders are working now. Once more. Gently rest the head. Bring the knees out and then just get a little bit of movement into the hips. Let them go wide. We're going to do the same exercise. This time we hold it up, squeezing knees and hands, so feet. Again, are hip width apart. Knees in. So there's a little bit of rotation in the hips. Squeeze the chest, and this time we go side to side, squeezing constantly. Lift and twist the upper back. Squeeze. Every time you come back to the center, think about squeezing. Because we let go of that squeeze bit by bit. Let's not. Squeeze in the middle. Breathe in. Breathe out as you return. Squeeze. Last one. And gently rest it down. Now we're going to go dropping our legs each time. So lift the legs to tabletop, and we're going to do what we did before, what we have done before, where your both legs drop and try and touch your toes off the ground. Now, as always, the back needs to definitely stay in position. So we're going to do it with the knees together. So knees together, feet a little bit apart. Let's not stick them together, a little bit apart so you get that little rotation, and push the knees together. Now, let's squeeze and drop. Now you need to make sure that back is staying still. If it's not, then don't drop the legs as much. Squeeze. So as you pull them back up, remember to squeeze. Start with your squeeze, but we might lose it a little bit as the legs lower down, and back up. Squeeze. Inner thighs are starting to feel it now. They're starting to tire out. They're not used to holding that for that length of time. Once more. And open up the inner thighs. Bring the stretch, gently rocking from side to side while you maintain a wide hip position, pulling the knees as wide as you can and rocking side to side. And bring it back in. But bring the feet together, and we're going to keep the squeeze on and push the feet together, and we're going to lift up nice and high. So squeeze, start by lifting high, but we're going to go into our abdominals again in a second. Just concentrate on squeezing the feet, keeping the hips up nice and high. Keep getting that contraction into those abdominals. Maintain the height. And we're going to drop the hips again, and we're going to lift the knees towards the head. So like we've done already with the previous exercise, where you were squeezing, now it's the feet that are squeezing. So drop the hips, squeeze. Now let's take the feet off and touch them back down. Now if that's too awkward on the hips, if it feels too awkward, especially in the inner thighs, let's go with the heels. And touch the heels off the mat. And bring the knees towards you. So you have the option of that, which might just ease the pressure and the awkwardness of the exercise, depending on how wide your knees are. Now squeeze. It can be tricky to squeeze again. Concentrate on maintaining that squeeze. Every time the heels touch, squeeze and bring them back up. Now let's lift the shoulders and let's continue. Squeeze. But let's add in, straighten the legs, bend, touch down, straighten. Touching down when the knees are bent, remember that, let's not get confused. And you don't need to touch the heels too far away from the butt, a little touch, that's enough. Maybe you can touch it a little bit further, but that adds more pressure. Once more of each. Support that neck again if you need to. Squeezing all the time and gently rest it down. Give the knees a good hug. Breathe. Get a couple of extra big breaths into the body. And gently rest those feet down. We will lift one last time and go up into our seated position to get those abdominals working. So bring yourself up, and we are balancing. So on the hips, that doesn't always suit the lower back, so keep the lower back comfortable. Balance. And from there, we straighten the legs and the arms. Go back, but watch your balance. Don't bring the hands too far back. Otherwise, you can end up falling back. And you can go back a little bit more, but let's not let the lower back go onto the mat. Nice and controlled. You can always go with one leg, or you can just stay balancing and just move your arms. Maybe the feet need to stay on the ground and you have to go one leg, two arms. But if you can, everything moving. Next time, hold. Even if the hands don't move, straighten out those legs, keep that lower back pressure free. All the work, all the pressure on the abdominals here. And bring it back in. You can bring a little stretch. Keep the knees bent a little bit so that you just relax those calves a little bit and catch the toes. And you can straighten them a little bit in that position and pull yourself down. So maybe hamstrings stretch. Maybe into the back a little bit, but no pressure on that lower spine where those discs are. That's the place we want to keep pressure free always. Tuck the chin a little bit more to add a little bit more stretch up along the spine, and that will pull down along as well. And cross the feet over, bring a little stretch into the hips. And in that position, normally we go into a stretch, we're not going into a stretch. Bring the hands back behind and lift. So the feet are in one foot in front of the other. We're going to come back down, and then we're going to go into that stretch. So lean forward into the stretch, adjust your feet if you need to, and back up. Now you can just take out this movement of the hands. If the wrists, shoulders don't like that position, then just take it out. Even just bring it back behind and open up the chest, even bit the knees in and out, and then go back into that stretch. But if you can lift in that position, do. So move safely from one position to the next. Now, last time, let's switch the feet around. So now the feet have changed position, and we lift in that position. Opening up the chest as you go back. Opening up the hips and the back as you go forward. And you can pause for a little bit in that stretch if you want, maybe 2 seconds rather than keep moving. Last time, and now bring the feet together, squeeze, and let's lift the hips and hold. So maybe just a little lift. That hips back a little bit more will put pressure on the wrists, obviously, because we're on the wrist, but will take a little bit of the pressure off the shoulders. If you lift the hips, then it starts to really open up the shoulder joint. So lower is always easier. Maybe you can only just lift a little bit, but let's try and lift fully, straight line from the shoulders to the knees almost, except the knees are going out. You can stay flat-footed if needs be. And gently rest it down. Shake out those arms, give them a little breather. Let's come onto our side. And let's lift in our side plank. So, lift and hold. Now let's get a little bit of movement into the top arm. So let's bring it down. Maybe you can't go in underneath, but just bring it down and back up. The further you go under, the more pressure, even just a little movement there, will be enough to just challenge those shoulders a little bit differently rather than staying in your side plank, which is also an option if you can't go too far. It's going to really challenge that shoulder. 2 more. And gently rest it down. Turn, face down, and lift into your plank position. And just hold. This time we will just hold our position before we go on to the other side. Nice big breaths. And rest it down. Change to the other shoulder. And again, let's lift. Hold again if you need to, but let's get a little bit of movement. The more you move your body, the tougher it will be, especially to get back up again. So make sure you don't fly into that position. Go with just a little arm movement. And when I say a little arm movement, I'm on about the supporting shoulder. Two more. Last one. And rest it down. Back to center, but come flat. A little bit of back extension. We don't want to leave out those back muscles. And the benefit that we get. Lift and lower. No rest at the bottom. And let's draw the elbows back. Try and cross them over in front so they come in front of the head. Cross them over and then they stretch back. So your elbows end up out in front of your shoulders. Again, quick demonstration to the front of the camera. That's the position that they end up in. And gently rest it down. We're going to go into full stretch, and the aim is to lift at full stretch, working up and down. But you know at this stage that you can draw your elbows back to make it easier if the pressure's on the back. Brace that center, lengthen to full stretch, or you can always go opposite arm, opposite leg rather than all 4. And lengthen and lift. No rest at the bottom. Everything comes back down to touch. Palms barely touch the mat, feet barely touch, and then you lift. That way we get full movement. Control it down each time. Lengthen. 2 more. Hold that last one, lift and hold. Back should be tired. Keep that center strong, keep your breathing. Keep that lift. Last breath. And gently rest it down. In that position, you don't have to be at full stretch, bring your hands back a little bit. Let's just get the sides of the backs moving a little bit. So between the hips and the ribs, lengthen one leg and shorten the other. So the movement again is in this area between the hips and the ribs. You're shortening and lengthening one side. And we're low, we're not lifted off. Get that technique. But in a second we're going to lift off and add a little bit more. We're going to use the arms to lift ourselves up gently. And now let's get a little bit of movement in that position now. But the more extension we're in, the tougher it is to get that movement. You really feel those contractions in that lower back, a little bit to the side. So keep it comfortable. And again, maybe you drop it a little bit, take the arms off, which means less balance, and you can get the same movement, which is a lot trickier, so maybe those fingers need to stay down. So the feet are sliding along the ground, once more to each. And rest it down. Not a huge amount of movement in that exercise, so keep it slow, keep it controlled. And lift one more time. Arms can stay where they are, but lift them off. Lift. And from that position, turn your toes out, bring them out, and squeeze in the middle. Out, toes stay turned out all of the time. Once more, bring them out, bring them in, squeeze, but bend your knees as you squeeze and straighten. Squeezing all of the time. Less bend in the knee, easier. More bend will be tougher. Bring them right up behind, keep the lift as you do so. Stretch them away, keep the pressure pushing the heels together. You might be able to go to a straight knee position, or you might be able to push them together in that position too much, but keep them pushing as much as you can. Last one. Keep them up behind and draw the elbows back and stay in that position. Lift the elbows to the ceiling. Keep the squeeze on. Maybe you can bring those hands back behind. Maybe you can lift a little bit higher and try and touch your heels. Keep the squeeze on. Pushing, pushing, pushing. And gently rest it down. Great way to open up those shoulders. Push back, get a stretch into the back. Nice big breaths. One more big breath in. And bring it up. Let's sway from side to side with the shoulders. So the shoulders go right and left. Just putting a little bit more weight on one side and the other. Be aware of where the shoulder is. So outside the hip, outside the wrist, and then it's changing to the other side. Now let's bring the hands together and let's do the same thing. So that's your technique. Let's lift and add the pressure. Lift. You can bring your feet a little bit wider. Because the hands are a little bit more narrow, balance is going to be trickier. Just sway. Shoulders are already starting outside the wrists and you're just moving them that little bit further. Stay in the elbows if you have to, always an option. And you can sway in that position, but again, keep it nice and slow, controlled. And rest it down. Slide the hands front, push the chest to the floor, but let's keep everything working. Bring it back up straight away. And we're working up and down. Drop to the elbows, come back up onto the hands. Drop to the elbows, back up on the hands. Leading with a different arm each time. Trying to get that straight, one straight arm while the other is down. So left arm straightens, right arm elbows on. And then you push down on that hand to get you up. Let's lift to add more pressure. Always quite a tough exercise to do on the upper body. Get as many as you can done. No resting. Maybe you have to hold your position to steady yourself, and maybe you can drop and lift one more time. Maybe you have to take a little pause when you're dropped down. Maybe a little pause when you're up. Either way, keep the shoulders working. Let's not rest the knees down, or if they do come down, stay moving. But if you're in that easier position, then keep it a little bit faster, because that is very easy compared to, but if they're tired, they'll still work. Once more of each. Push, lift the stretch down on the back of the legs. Hold that stretch. Shake out the arms if you need to. Give them a little breather from that from that last exercise. Keep that stretch. Let's drop it into the plank position and hold. Straight lines, nice big breaths. Drop to the elbows and hold that position. Keep working. Again, we fall down at any stage, we give in, you get straight back up again. Try not to give in, we keep going. Stick with me all the time. Drop the knees, no rest. It's an easier exercise, it's not rest. We're not dropping the hips as well. The hips stay in line between the shoulders and the knees. Come up onto the hands, there's no rest. We're still modified plank, straight line between the knees and the shoulders. In that position, let's get our shoulder blades moving. Shoulder blades together and apart, full movement. It's a modified position, but those shoulders should be tired. Full stretch each direction. To really tire out those shoulders. Two more. And sit back, take the weight off the arms, give them a little breather. Let's bring it straight back forward again into our opposite arm, opposite leg. Go to full stretch and bring it out and in. Lengthen. Once more, shoulders still tired, but we're in an easier position, which means they're going to get even more tired without putting too much weight on them. So we try and keep them going. Keep that breathing, keep that length into the body. Hand and foot go out. Last one. Drop it down. From there, we're going into a super plank. Now, super plank, the hands need to be further out in front. So you can walk the hands forward or the feet back, whichever you want. So start in your plank position, and we're bringing our hands a little bit more in front. How far, that's up to you. Maybe you can go a little bit further. Might be easier to slide those feet back. And you have to make sure you've got good grip on your mat to be able, so your arms and legs aren't slipping. Hold that position, 10 more seconds. Hips down in line as much as you can. 2, 1, and drop it down. Take a breather, take a rest. Let's do a little bit of a stretch for the shoulders. So you can bring it off to the side, you can bring it up to the wall if you want and do it on the wall. Chest pushing to the floor and keep that stretch. Open up the chest. And change. And once more, I'm just doing a quick stretch. This is where you can do a little bit more stretching yourself. Spend a little bit of time on the shoulders, maybe a little bit more today, because there was a little bit more work for those shoulders. And relax, and let's bring it up and just do the arm across the body. Stretch the shoulder rotators. Pull across. and change. So again, go on and do another couple of repetitions of this stretch, the last stretch, doorway stretch. 2 hands in the doorway and step through to open up the chest, which is that position, and you push through and really open up that chest. Okay guys, well done, another video down. Thank you, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.